A man with scorched, smoke-seeping skin staggered toward a lone wooden cabin, as if something terrifying was chasing him. He banged on the door, where a man and a woman inside were armed and on high alert. He claimed he'd been attacked, not only nearly killed, but his wife had been taken. Pulling a few gold pieces from his pocket, he said the attackers had tried to rob him but failed. He was willing to give up the rest of his gold just for shelter. Moments later, a group on horseback stormed toward the cabin. Their leader, stern and commanding, declared they were hunting a highly dangerous fugitive, someone who might be hiding on this land. He warned the woman of the house, this man might look pitiful, but letting him inside could have dire consequences. The woman, tense and wary, insisted she hadn't seen any strangers. As dusk fell, the leader had no choice but to pull back for now, but when the woman turned to head back inside, her husband was nowhere to be seen. She rushed into the bedroom only to find him lying flat on the ground, while the man they'd taken and sat nearby, mouth dripping with blood. Before she could react, her husband slowly rose, his mouth tearing open to reveal razor-sharp, monstrous fangs. Not long after, twin brothers Stack and Smoke, battle-hardened by life, finally made it home. With riches brought back from Chicago, they were ready to open a blues club and build a haven for black joy in their old neighborhood. Before long, the club opened its doors. One late night, 3 white people appeared outside the club, the very same trio seen at the beginning of the film. They claimed to be traveling musicians, just looking to rest and hear some tunes. One of them softly hummed a blues riff, trying to bond through shared taste. But Smoke, hardened by years on the battlefield, instantly sensed something was off. He firmly turned them away. The leader, Remick, didn't get angry. Instead, he left a cryptic remark, "We'll walk real slow, give you folks a chance to change your minds." Inside, the club was in trouble. Customers were all paying with plantation-issued vouchers, leaving not a single cent in real cash. At this rate, the place wouldn't last much longer. Mary, the only white person in the room, had a unique place in both worlds. Her grandfather was half black, giving her rare access across racial lines. She suggested to Stack that these outsiders might offer an opportunity. She could approach them and feel them out. Stack handed her a pistol just in case. Mary stepped outside. The 3 of them were still there, feigning casual interest. She said she just wanted to be sure they meant no harm. The 3 people smiled and nodded. When she asked if they had any money, Bert pulled out 2 gold coins from his pocket.
What type of money is this?
The solid gold kind, darling. Yeah,
Where's this from?
it's from a different place and a different time, but it spins just the same.
Mary wasn't sure if the gesture was genuine, but found herself unable to reject such a sudden gift. Then she noticed at Remick's twisted grin, saliva trailing from his lips, and a strange red glow pulsing in his eyes. Alarm bells rang in her head. Mary drew her gun in a flash, barking at them to leave immediately, but the moment she turned her back, Remick struck. Back inside, Mary suddenly turned unusually affectionate towards Stack, but Stack noticed something strange. Drool was dripping from the corner of her mouth. Not long after, Smoke came looking for his brother, only to find Mary hunched over him like a wild animal, biting into his flesh. Stack was barely clinging to life. Furious, Smoke drew his gun and riddled Mary with bullets, but to his horror, she stood back up, untouched by the gunfire. With a twisted grin she hissed, "I'll kill every last one of you," and ran out of the club. Smoke cradled his dying brother, consumed by grief. He tried to comfort Stack one last time, but death was already closing in. With his final breath, Stack whispered his love, and then his eyes closed forever. But the tragedy was far from over. After clearing out the guests, Annie learned what Mary had said before fleeing. Realizing this was no ordinary attack, she suggested they move Stack's body outside, but Smoke refused to let anyone touch him. Annie warned this might not be a natural death. Mary had taken multiple gunshots and walked away unscathed. Something evil, maybe worse than evil, was at work. Still, Smoke couldn't accept the loss. In desperation, he begged for some kind of spell or hoodoo that might bring Stack back. But Annie could only shake her head and apologize. There was nothing she could do. Then the club's doorman returned from the restroom. Annie stopped him at the entrance. Suspicious he'd been bitten, he lashed out, demanding his pay. As Smoke handed him some cash, the doorman suddenly grabbed his wrist. Smoke reacted instantly, firing a shot that blew through the man's jaw. The doorman staggered to his feet, and the group quickly slammed the door shut. Then came something even more terrifying. Stack, who had clearly died, was now speaking from the locked room. His voice, his rhythm, his words, it all sounded exactly like Stack. Smoke hesitated. Annie insisted, whatever was in that room, it wasn't really him. She had checked, Stack was dead. But Stack, trying to prove he was fine, began recalling memories, intimate ones of their time in the German trenches, the blood-soaked streets of Chicago, details only the real Stack could know. Smoke faltered, doubt crept in. He turned to Annie and asked for the key. Before she could answer, Stack slammed the door open, acting fast. Annie threw a vial of garlic water at him. Stack screamed and fled into the night. Annie turned to the others. That's not a spirit, it's a vampire. Their cousin Sammy was confused. If that wasn't Stack, why did he move and talk just like him? Annie explained, spirits replace the soul, but vampires are different. It's a deeper curse. The soul doesn't leave. It's trapped inside the body, forever. They're stuck in darkness and hatred, unable to feel the warmth of sunrise, doomed to live in eternal rage. Smoke wanted to know if his brother could still be saved. Annie made Smoke promise if she ever got bitten, he had to end her before she turned.
The best thing we can do for him is free his spirit from this curse. They gotta be killed one by one.
How the hell do we do that?
Sunlight, I wouldn't stake it hard.
What a night.
It's because of me. My daddy told me. Said the devil was coming on account of my music.
You know, I had a gal once, vampire. She's light-skinned too.
Just then, a scream rang out in the distance. The group discovered one of their own had died. To prevent any chance of turning, Smoke threw the body outside. From far off, Smoke heard a haunting song. Remick was coming, leading a full army of vampires. Under growing fear and tension, suspicion began to spread among the survivors. The survivors began to suspect that one of them might be a vampire. Annie suggested a test. Everyone had to eat garlic. If anyone was infected, they wouldn't be able to stomach it. When Berlin refused, Smoke didn't hesitate. He pulled a gun on him. Under that cold, unrelenting stare, Berlin broke down in tears and forced down the garlic. For a moment, the room was frozen. Then, one by one, everyone else ate the garlic. Nothing happened. Only then did they realize they'd turned on each other for nothing. The man on the floor hadn't been bitten, he was just drunk, and the blood on the ground was spilled beer. Suddenly, the man they'd thrown outside woke up. He'd banged on the door, calling for Smoke. Racked with guilt, Smoke opened the door and the mutated doorman pounced. At that moment, Grace's husband appeared. He ignored the bloody chaos and calmly told her it was time to go home. Grace stood frozen in the doorway, pale and terrified, watching her friend being torn apart. Her husband, unfazed, said with a smile, "He's just a little hungry, that's all." This wasn't the man she knew. Beneath his gentle expression lurked a predator's thrill. He kept coaxing her, saying everything was ready, they could just go home. Then his tone shifted, "All you have to do is let me back inside. We'll pack our things." Like none of this ever happened, people inside begged Grace not to fall for it. "We'll find a way out of this. Don't trust him." And then Remick arrived.
You should listen to him, Grace, or listen to me. 'Cause I know everything he knows now, and I want you to let us in there. Or we gonna go to the grocery store, we gonna pay little Lisa a visit.
He hadn't just taken Grace's husband's body, he'd taken his memories, too. He used their most intimate moments to manipulate and wear Grace down. Then he turned his attention to Smoke's cousin, Sammy. With eerie calm, Remick confessed that Sammy had been his real target all along. He wanted to use Sammy's musical gift to summon their long-dead ancestors back from the grave. To sweeten the deal, he made an offer, "Give me Sammy, and the rest of you can live." The room exploded with outrage. Smoke refused without hesitation, but Remick only sneered, "You couldn't even save your own brother. What makes you think you can save anyone else?" By reading his followers' memories, Remick revealed a devastating truth. The club that Smoke and Stack had bought from a white man was a trap set by a leader of the clan. The plan had been to lure black folks into one place and slaughter them all. Now, Remick invited them to join a new kind of family together. They could wipe the clan from the earth. No one moved. Then Stack stepped forward. He spoke of how the brothers had spent their whole lives running toward freedom but had never truly reached it. Now, he had found a way out. Not by running, not by fighting, but by merging with the darkness, by becoming one of them. Stack turned to his brother and said quietly, "I can't do this alone. I need you to come with me." Before he could say more, the others rushed to pull Smoke back inside, desperate to keep him from hearing another word. Grace, terrified her daughter in town might be in danger, suggested they break out and fight, but Annie urged them to hold out until daylight. Grace's eyes burned with fury. "I'm done waiting for sunrise. I'm not going to sit here while my family and neighbors turn into those monsters wearing human skin." She turned to Smoke, her voice cutting. "You were a soldier, decisive, ruthless on the battlefield. And now? You freeze when it matters most?" Those things took my husband. Now they threaten my daughter. The answer's simple and brutal. If we can't act now, then when? Just then, a strange chant drifted through the night. It was the vampires. Their voices carried a melody both beautiful and horrifying. Like the opening of some grotesque celebration, they were singing, savoring the memory of bloodshed. It was sickening. Grace finally broke. She lunged for the door, desperate to fight her way out. The others held her back as she screamed and thrashed, vowing to kill every last one of them. Outside, the chanting continued, mocking their fear, feeding off their helplessness. That was the final straw. The group agreed. No more waiting. They armed themselves with whatever they could: stakes, garlic, silver, anything that might work. Then, Remick threw open the bar's front door. The battle began. It was more brutal than any of them had imagined. Traditional vampire killers' stakes, garlic, silver were all used, but the enemy was overwhelming in number. Smoke's side was quickly outmatched, but Annie made a key discovery. These vampires could feel pain. Before long, Annie was knocked down by Stack, now fully turned. Just before she changed, she looked to Smoke and reminded him of their promise. With trembling hands, Smoke drove a wooden stake through her chest. To buy time for the others to escape, Delta volunteered to stay behind and cover their retreat. Smoke and his cousin Sammy made it to the back door only to find Remick already waiting for them. Suddenly, Stack tackled Smoke to the ground. Remick lunged for Sammy, ready to sink his teeth in. Just then, Berlin drove a wooden stake into Remick's back. Enraged, Remick spun around and sank his fangs deep into Berlin's neck. Smoke raised his gun and fired multiple shots. Dropping Remick to the ground, he shouted to Sammy, "Run! Keep running, don't stop till sunrise." But Remick leapt up in a flash and gave chase. Cornered and hopeless, Sammy began to recite the Lord's Prayer. Hearing it, Remick froze, memories flooding back. He recalled how the man who stole his father's land once forced them to recite those same words. "I hated them," he muttered, but the strangest thing? Those words still brought him comfort. At that moment, the two brothers Smoke and Stack were locked in a desperate fight. Smoke was exhausted, barely able to resist. He tried to hold Stack down, but he was no match. Meanwhile, Remick sneered. Those missionaries made up stories of God and the devil just to justify their control over land, blood, and souls. His words dripped with rage, mockery, and a shattered sense of faith. Stack finally overpowered Smoke, straddling him, fangs bared, but just as he was about to bite, he hesitated. Something flickered in his eyes. A shred of humanity surfaced through the haze. Smoke seized the moment, twisted free, and reversed their positions. He pinned Stack down and grabbed a wooden stake, aiming it at his brother's heart. But he froze. The creature beneath him, blood-stained, monstrous, was still the brother he grew up with. His hand trembled. Between striking and sparing, he was torn not just by choice, but by the unbearable weight of brotherhood. Softly, Smoke whispered, "I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you." Seizing the moment, Sammy grabbed the resonator guitar from the water and smashed it into Remick's head. With a screech of agony, the metal plate embedded itself into Remick's skull. Furious, he tore the metal plate from his skull and lunged at Sammy, ready to sink his teeth into him. But in the very next second, Smoke drove a wooden stake straight through Remick's chest. Remick's scream mingled with the howls of the other vampires, forming a hellish symphony. Thunder rolled overhead as if the heavens were answering the horror below. Then it happened. A single ray of sunlight pierced the black sky, the first light of dawn, the vampires' mortal enemy. As the golden beam struck them, they began to burn. Remick let out one final, desperate shriek as his body crumbled into ash. The other vampires met the same fate, consumed by fire, their screams fading into silence. But even after this supernatural nightmare, a more earthly threat remained. The leader of the Ku Klux Klan. After sending Sammy to safety, Smoke chose to face that threat alone. The next day, as Klan members arrived at the bar to carry out their racist massacre, they found one man waiting, a man who had lost everything. Smoke, armed with military-grade weapons from Chicago, unleashed bloody vengeance on the white supremacists. Caught off guard, the Klansmen were slaughtered. Most fell within minutes. One survivor tried to flee in a car. Smoke threw a grenade through the window, ending it in flames. Smoke approached the Klan leader, who was crawling through the blood-soaked dirt, begging for mercy. Gasping, he asked for a cigarette. Smoke said nothing. The man offered him money, anything, but But Smoke no longer cared. As the clan leader's screams echoed into the morning air, justice was served. The cost was more blood and pain. Decades passed. Sammy became a celebrated blues musician. His music was pressed onto records and played across the world. But time left its mark. One night in the present day, after a performance, the now elderly Sammy sat at the bar. A man and a woman approached. Sammy turned. When he saw that face, time melted away. He was back in that terrible night.
Maybe once a week, I wake up paralyzed, reliving that night. But before the sun went down, I think that was the best day of my life.
Last time I see my brother.
Love you.
Last time I seen the sun.
Long time at the wrong time.